the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being distracted by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. This has been a great day so far for me. Been hanging out with two of my boys. It's very nice outside, very fall weather here in the Iowa area, right here on the Mississippi River. So we get a nice little breeze coming off the river. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm ready for fall. I don't know about you guys, but I love the fall weather. Our leaves are changing just slightly, and I'm ready for it. Football has started. Leaves are changing. The air is crisp and cool. I'm ready to put on my sweatshirts. And man, I'm just excited because it's fall. So I hope you are too. I know some of you are dreading winter, especially those of us here in the north. Some of you dread winter, and I'm sorry that that's the case. I lived in Texas for 6 years, and we really didn't have winter. We just had really high winds and cold temperatures, and I did not like that. So anyway, today I want to talk real briefly from the parable of the sower. Now, most of us are all familiar with this parable. And I want to take a little bit of a different spin on it, taking, a little bit of a leadership perspective and looking at it from a pastor and ministry leader perspective. We know the parable of the sower. The farmer, he sows the seed and it falls on various sorts of ground. And we see it, falling on the rocky place. And so it doesn't really grow because it dries out, or the sun can't get to it, and it scorches it and it withers it, and then it lands on good soil, and so it grows up, and so and then it says that there's 60 or 30 times what was sown. And I was thinking about that today, and thinking about just from a leadership standpoint, especially now in our current season with COVID and pandemic. And, some of us are volunteers that kind of all over the place. And I understand that the parable is focused primarily from a salvation standpoint. God's the sower, or God's the farmer, and, and the ground in which the seeds fall is kind of our lives, and whether or not, it flourishes in our life or not. But I did want to take a little bit of different perspective on that, and just look at it as, if you and I are the farmer, if we're the sower, if we're throwing out seed, what kind of soil are we really spending our time with? A lot of times as pastors, we have a tendency to focus on chasing the one. We think of the parable of the lost sheep. The shepherd, he leaves the flock to chase the one, so that the one can be brought back into the herd, and we use that from a salvation standpoint. We chase the one so that they will come into salvation and be in a relationship with Jesus. And I think that there's value in that. Obviously, that's important. But I think that sometimes as pastors, we can kind of go the other way too far, where we spend all of our time chasing the one and neglecting the herd. And especially when we're talking about developing our congregation, developing the people in our church, developing our volunteers, sometimes I think we can spend too much time trying to get those who are not interested in being leaders, not interested in growing in their discipleship, not interested in really spending their time serving others. We spend a lot of time trying to get them to change their mind and convince them to spend their time discipling, growing, becoming leaders, and volunteering, and all those things, instead of keying in on those who are saying that they want to be discipled. They're wanting to be developed. They're wanting to grow in their leadership. We spend a lot of time chasing people, and we neglect a lot of times the people that are right in front of us. And so, going back to the parable of the sower, we're scattering our seed, and we're frustrated that it's sitting on the rocky soil, and we spend a lot of time trying to clear out those rocks so that seed will grow. Right now, I'm in a battle with my backyard because We have one area in our yard we have a relatively small yard, and we have 7 very large trees in our yard. And one area in particular, we don't get very much sun to it because of the large tree that's over it, and water tends to kind of settle there. And so it's a really tough area to grow grass. I've tried several different things, and I'm trying more things. And every year I try to grow grass there, and to no avail. At this point, it's still a big mud patch most of the time, with a little spot of grass here and a little spot of grass there. And it's frustrating. And I'm spending a lot of time trying to get that area to grow. And what I realized, especially this year, is I've spent so much time focusing on that area that I haven't paid attention to the fact that the rest of the yard has grown up a lot of clover and different kinds of weeds. And I've neglected what was once a healthy yard to grow grass in this, big mud patch. And so this year I made the decision I was going to change my focus. I was going to spend more time trying to develop and get the rest of my yard healthy, and just kind of forget about the mud patch. The mud patch has not changed throughout the course of the summer, but the rest of my yard has gotten healthier. The clover is gone. We're getting, better patches of grass. It's greener. It looks healthier. And so when we're thinking about how we're developing our leaders, we're developing our volunteers, even how we're just developing the quality of our congregation as a whole, where are you spending most of your time? Are you spending time trying to chase those who maybe are on the fringe? Maybe they're nominally interested. Maybe they raise their hand. Yes, I want to be a volunteer. Yes, I want to be a leader, but they just don't have the discipline or the interest, or maybe life is just too busy for them to really invest their time to follow through. And at the same time, are there people in your congregation and your leadership team who are serving faithfully, who have shown that that they'll do whatever is needed, that they're interested in growing, they're very teachable, they're good listeners, they're even leading in some capacity on their own without a lot of prompting? Are there those people that we are ignoring, that we're not spending time with, that could be a lot better and more impactful leaders than what they are if we would take the time and invest into them? Because I think that sometimes we spend a lot of time working on the rocky places and the dry places. We spend a lot of time trying to get people that we think, or maybe that we just want, to be volunteers. We want them to be on our leadership team. We want them to be more involved in what they are, maybe because we like them, maybe because they show maybe some quality leadership potential, maybe because they're somehow connected with people that we know, and so we want we have hopes for them and we have desires for them. But at the end of the day, if they don't have those same hopes and wants and desires, and they're not willing to follow through, or they're not willing to grow, or whatever the obstacle is that's holding them back, we can work and work and work and spend a lot of time on those people trying to develop them. But if they're not interested in being developed, then we're really just wasting time. And maybe not we're wasting time, but we're not using our time as wisely as possible. Because the whole time we're doing that, we're missing others who simply just need a little bit more attention, who simply just need a little bit more of a nudge, maybe just a little bit more of encouragement. Maybe they just need you to recognize and say, man, you're doing a great job there. I would love to see you try this out, or I would love to move you more into a deeper leadership role, or I would like to have you oversee this ministry or lead this small group. Sometimes that's really all good leaders need, is they just need just a little bit of recognition that what they're doing is important, that it's valuable, and that they're doing a good job. And so I want to encourage us today, as we are going through our days, as we're thinking about our teams, especially again, as we're in this, weird state of some volunteers are there and some are not, some are comfortable coming back and some are not, and whatever the case is for you. Take a few minutes today and just think about your leaders, your volunteers, the people that are on your team, and who can you identify right now that say, I just want a little bit more training. I just want a little bit more responsibility. I just want a little bit more opportunity. And you know that if you gave it to them, that they would flourish. And then think about the people that you've tried and tried and tried and tried to get them to step up. And for whatever reason, good or bad reasons, whatever the reason is, they just haven't been able to do it. And what I would say is start focusing your attention on the first group and stop paying so much attention to the second group. Because one thing that I have learned over the years in ministry and in leadership, that if you invest in those who are hungry and who are wanting and who are willing, and those who will put in the time and put in the effort, who are teachable, if you will invest your time there, then what will happen is those who you want to be involved, that are dragging their feet or have issues or whatever, they will then see what you're doing with those who are willing, and they will start to become more willing. But on the flip side, if you spend all of your time investing into people who aren't really wanting to move forward, all the people that are wanting to move forward will feel neglected, they will feel unappreciated, and they'll feel like they're spending a lot of time investing with not a lot of recognition or even encouragement in what they're doing. And they will either burn out or they will move on to somewhere else where they will receive someone developing them, growing them, investing in them. And so some of your best leaders are leaving out the back door and you're not really paying attention to it simply because you're not paying enough attention to them. Whereas you're keeping people that maybe are great people, but aren't really as engaged and not really as invested in their own well-being and their own growth, as well as the growth and the health of the church itself. And so that's just a little bit of encouragement to you. Spend time, identify the people who are hungry and looking to be developed and grown, and spend some time developing them. And on the back end, let the others fall in line when they see the effects and the impact you're making in the others' lives. So hope you're doing well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye.